One of the more important lessons that I've learned in my life is that the outside world is never satiated, and the outside world is anything outside of your mind. So, what do I mean by that? There is always something or someone within the outside world that is demanding more of you, right? So whether it's some sort of market force or somebody in your life or whatever, there's always something. And if it's not one thing, it's another thing, right? If it's not one set of market forces or something, maybe it's something that's happening in your family life. If it's not that, then it is something that's happening at work or something that is happening at maybe an organization that you belong to or whatever, right? There's always, or even an external thing that's happening to your body, right? Like aging, for example, happens, right? And there's always these outside forces that are pulling you in different directions and putting like different demands on you. And, what I've learned, right? So this is really thinking deeply about this is that you just have to stand up and walk your ground. I think most often these outside forces, they sort of naturally subsude when they forget about the current issue. It's kind of something that you'll learn is um, most things seem pressing to the outside world until you but if you sort of ignore that thing, it disappears often, right? And it might be not until the sort of second go round that that is identified as an important issue. Um, you know, you have to realize that there's a lot of randomness to the outside world, right? Like there is um, people getting pulled in different directions and they put on pressure, they project their anxieties onto you. Um, and so if that happens, it's easy to project it onto another individual rather than absorbing that particular stuff, right? And a lot of people would just project it onto somebody else, they wouldn't absorb it, right? But the sort of personality trait that I have, or the traits that I have, I absorb those things, right? And so I have to learn as an individual to ignore and just keep going, right? And sort of push that stuff away. Um, and you get better at it as you go, as you get older. You don't get perfect. It never gets perfect, right? But some people naturally, that's their personality traits, is that they don't absorb the outside world very well. And it takes them an awful lot of the outside world banging on the door, right, and pushing at them. And, it might take an awful lot of repetition before it gets in. But the outside world for me is right there. So I pay attention to it almost like immediately, right? I'm very, very empathetic or very sensitive. I can pick up on a lot of things, right? Um, so what I have learned to do is to put up more boundaries and barriers in my life, and really kept a thicker wall around who I am. And that's a hard lesson. It's hard to learn, but you simply just keep on going and you ignore, the sort of immediate demands from the outside world that are being pushed on you, or, you know, you really take a step back and you become better at dealing with the situation, rather than being emotionally reactive. Now, it's super hard not to react in an emotional way, and realize the situation for what it is that, very often it's just somebody else, uh, that is anxious, and they're sort of projecting onto you their anxiety, right? They're projecting their sort of emotions and all of that kind of stuff onto you because they don't absorb it. Um, but you know, when you're dealing with this, you have a tendency to absorb it, but you really have to get into this mindset or this belief that you're just kind of like just a wall, or you push it away, right? Like you kind of get into kind of like just unemotional about everything, and the more that you sort of get practice with that, the better off that you become with dealing with all of the forces from the outside world, whether it is at work or home. uh, and it just becomes, you know it's a challenge, it's emotionally taxing, but it's a far better way to deal with it than getting emotionally charged, and dealing with the anxieties that come with you know other forces projecting onto you, when often you can't control those forces. There's nothing that you could do, and so the only thing you could do is to put up a wall and keep going. And I think, if you think of, it's one way to deal with like basically trauma, right? Like that's how kids, when they're in a traumatic situation, they deal with it. They put up a wall, and it's a way to deal with all of that, and because it puts you into a safe place. And that's what I'm suggesting for you to do, is figure out how to get into that safe place, um, and sort of protect yourself from the outside forces that are out there. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.